and learned very early on that if you wanted to achieve something, you had to work for it.
What were some of the key lessons you learned at the start?
If I take as a sales rep, when you start in that role, you have to convince people about what you are there to sell is something that's better than someone else is selling. And end of the day, it became about a people game. Mm-hmm. When you become a leader, your role changes, and that applies to my role today. You start to work through people. You try to coach people. You actually become also part psychologist, because you are listening to a lot of the either frustrations or not having solutions. So the ability and what you learn as a leader was my first or the second trip I was out, and I was sitting in a room and I was working late, and the full team was working late. There was no one leaving before me. It was like 9 o'clock in the evening. I'm like that, but why are they not going home? But culturally, they don't leave before the leader leaves. What I saw with Hunkemöller was it was a company that it was the European version of Victoria's Secret. It was a very male-gazed way of how women should wear lingerie. And honestly, I was like, that needs to change. And now today we are a woman-led company when it comes to all design, all product, all marketing, designing for women through a lens of what woman needs is. As a CEO, you're always on, one way or the other. If my owners from America, they call, or I call, that can be 10 o'clock in the evening. I do the call at 10 o'clock. If there's a crisis, that we work till we're done. An interesting thing is that I never looked at the job as a job. It's part of me. I love it.
Dear students, welcome to the CEO Leadership Series. My name is Chang Wang Li, and it is a gigantic pleasure for me to present to you Mr. Brian Grevy, the CEO of Hunkemöller. Hunkemöller is one of the leading and most popular lingerie brands and firms in Europe. It was founded in Amsterdam in 1886 and today operates more than 700 stores and online platforms in 20 different countries and employs over 7,000 people worldwide. Mr. Brian Grevy has been CEO of Hunkemöller since Thursday, February 1st, 2024, and he is undoubtedly one of the most renowned top managers in the European and global apparel industry. Mr. Grevy studied at Vejle Business School in Denmark. Afterwards, he started to work for Reebok, adidas in Denmark, and then held different roles and leadership roles over the years, including sales director of Sweden and Stockholm, vice president for men's global training, and also senior vice president for the global business unit training, before becoming general manager for adidas Nordics in Sweden again, before moving back to Herzogenaurach in Germany to become general manager for training. Then he became chief marketing officer of Gant, which is a Swedish firm with American roots, a clothing and apparel firm, and then became CEO of Gant. After which, and in 2024, as I mentioned before, he became CEO of Hunkemöller. Now, it is a gigantic pleasure for me to present to you Mr. Grevy, certainly because of his tremendous renown in the European and global apparel industry. In addition, out of our list of highest profile guests, he is the only one that I can say with quite some confidence that he consistently delights the opposite sex with his brand and company, and I think we all can learn a thing or two from him. Thus, please help me and very warmly welcome Mr. Brian Grevy.
Thank you so much. That was nice.
Well, you earned it. You earned it. And
thank you.
You deserve it. And it's a great pleasure to have you here. So thank you very much for coming. We would like to maybe start the conversation by getting to know you as a person. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, starting from your childhood and youth?
God, yes. So as you understand, I'm Danish, proud Danish. I grew up in a small city in the middle of Denmark. I am the oldest of 4 brothers. I would say I come from a middle-class family and learned very early on that if you wanted to achieve something, you had to work for it. I've done tons of sports. I love sports. it's been part of my life, and I think sport maybe is one of those things that has taught me the most, because it is both individual and it is team. And actually what you learn in a combination of that has, I think, carried a lot of philosophies through my career. And then I've moved a lot, yeah. So that's my upbringing in a 10-second speed dating.
All right. You mentioned sports.
Yeah.
What type of sports?
God, it started with, when I was young, there was no computers, there was no mobile phones. We did sport. That's in the city I was in. That's what we did. So I started with football, then it became football, tennis, then it became badminton. Badminton, maybe not everyone knows, but very big sport in Denmark. It then became handball, and I played some golf on the side, and then I choose handball because I really enjoyed it, and I became pretty okay at playing, if I say so.
I think you're being humble. You were a semi-professional.
Yeah,
handball player,
I played. I was in and around of the best team in the city on the best league in Denmark. And then what we had coming out of that, when they started to create a career, then it became more individual. So I started to go to the gym, play squash. Then the golf continued on the side. And in my older days, cycling has come in. It's almost like a cliche, get put plus 50, on with a spandex suit, out on your race bike, and here you go. But I really enjoy it. And then skiing is a passion for me and my family.
Okay, wide variety of activities. Yeah. In your childhood and youth, so you were very interested in sports. What about school? I mean, if you may disclose, were you a good student back then already, or did you pick it up over time?
I would say I was a good student when I had an interest for it.
Okay. That's fair.
There was things where I'm like, I'm never going to work with this. It was like, then I would get myself through with the grades, and the things I was generally interested in there, I would do good.
What were your favorite subjects, and how come you chose to study at Vejle Business School?
Oh, it's for me, I was not the academic that wanted to do math and science and those things. It was, I could see the value of it, but I didn't want to work with it. It didn't spark anything in me. But business did, and people did, and that's why I went that path, because I knew I needed a foundation to build from.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about your time at the business school?
God, it's many years ago. I remember that. One thing I remember, we had to build a company back then. So we had a case where we had a month to build a company. We had to come up with a business plan, an idea, and I still remember what we came up with. And today I'm like, really? But it was selling, the LPs, the music, the round ones. Is LP, is that the English word for it?
I think so, yeah.
The vinyl things.
Records.
And we wanted to do a second-hand store where people could come in and, maybe a little ahead of time of sustainability to recharge and rebuild. I would say the business case never really hung together, but it was a passion.
All right. Well, the product became obsolete at some point. So.
Exactly. And now actually it's on its way back out there. When you look at some of the cool undergrounds and the stores popping up, there's a revival in it, which is interesting.
Okay. How come you then decided to join, I think, Reebok, Adidas afterwards?
So it started actually before, when I was done with school. I did a traineeship in a sports store, and I could combine that with when I played handball. And I did 2 years of a traineeship which combined school and sport, and I just loved being in a store, serving people, selling them products. So I was really just like, wow, I want to do that. But then I had the curiosity in me, and I went to buying at Adidas and at Reebok and at Nike, and I can tell you, I bombarded them with my CV because I wanted to go out and become a sales rep, driving around, selling the products. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And then the Reebok sales rep one day that came to the store said, listen, I actually think we have an open position in Copenhagen coming up. And I'm like, CV in, interview, 3 months later, I was in Copenhagen.
Okay.
So that was my transition into Reebok. But I was very persistent. I was like, every time we met the salespeople, I would ask, is there a role at Adidas? Is there a role at Nike? I didn't really care about the brand. I just wanted to get out and do it.
Okay. What was your experience like? What were some of the key lessons you learned at the start?
If I take as a sales rep, when you started in that role, you have to convince people about what you are there to sell, is something that's better than someone else is selling. And end of the day, it became about a people game. If I'm very honest, I built very strong relationship with my customers. Some of them I know today. I was reliable. And I used a lot of time because Reebok was not the hottest brand. You had Nike and Adidas, you had local brands like Hummel, etc. That was hotter. So I would spend a lot of Saturdays in the stores with the people that bought the stores that bought the products to help sell. And that earned me a lot of goodwill. And end of the day, you walk into a store, you might have a preference for or a signal you want to buy a new running shoe, but a store person actually can help you shape what you're buying. And that I understood very early on. Also, get good friends with the sales reps in the stores, and they might pick your shoes down from the shelf.
All right, sounds good. Some of our students might be working in those stores part-time or start their careers there as well. Do you have like one insight pointer that you would, in addition to that, give us or give them? Like, is there one selling technique that might be unusual that you used that was quite successful?
God, that's a good question.
Well, maybe
I think you have to be very good to read the signals on people and ask the right questions. And I still today, I would always go in, is there anything you're looking for specific? If people say no, you just leave them. But when they start to take things off, then you're going, is the right size there? You just start the natural interaction. It's like a conversation with a good friend. You just need to get into it.
Okay. I mentioned before you climbed up the career ladder quite rapidly over the next few years. So what happened afterwards?
With Reebok, I then got the chance. I had a general interest in the apparel side of the business, and I was asked to help doing the ranging for what we were selling in the Scandic in the Nordics at that time. We would travel to Barcelona, Boston. We would do the UK, and then we produced ourselves as well. And then you had Boston, which we would go into where the main collection was done. And I had an affinity for like building the collections. What should we sell? What price points? How do we merchandise it? So I had an interest, and I was invited in to help with it. And then I got the chance because unfortunately Anna that did the job at that time got sick, long-term sick. And they offered me the role, and I was like, yep, I'm going to do that. And then I jumped into it. And there was a lot of things I didn't know at that time, but it was another opportunity to learn.
Understood. Was that the first time you started to have a kind of leadership role, so to speak, in a professional setting?
This was the first time. No, I would say when I was in the retail store, in the end of the last 3 years of my retail journey, I was managing 5 stores, so I had quite a big team at that time. At Reebok, I had, as the product part, it was around, I think we were 5 or 6 people at that time.
Okay. What was that transition like? Because oftentimes we hear, and many of us experience, it's a bit different from being very, very good as an individual player, which is important, but then becoming a team leader, so to speak, you need to manage different people, right?
For sure, that when you become a leader, your role changes, and that applies to my role today. You start to work through people. You try to coach people. You actually become also part psychologist because you are listening to a lot of the either frustrations or not having solutions. So the ability and what you learn as a leader, the bigger the teams comes, is that it's not down to you to be the smartest guy in the room anymore. It's not up to you to do every single thing because you can't. So you need to bring the best people around you, irrespective of what role you're in. You need to enable them, you need to lead them, you need to grow them, and you need to, at least my experience, you need to allow people to do mistakes. Mm-hmm. Because through mistakes, that's where you learn the most.
Okay, all right, sounds fair. As I mentioned, you had a storied career at Adidas with different stations and back and forth from Germany to Sweden and again. So can you tell us some of the things you experienced, some of the highlights over the next few years?
So I went to Germany, and to the story, I started in Adidas Nordic in 2004. And I remember I was sitting down in one of I was just mentioning to you, it's like we had those big go-to-market meetings. There'll be several thousand people sitting in an audience. We had a massive space for that in the headquarters. And I remember sitting down like, I want to be on that stage one day and present what the products are, the stories we're going to tell. I want to be in the beginning of the process. And it's interesting, and that's maybe as one advice, if you put your heads to it and say, and you visualize what you would like to do, normally the path to it becomes much faster. And in 2006, I then actually got offered a role in headquarters. And I moved to Germany again, like, yep, do it, moved. And I think that was a big shift, because suddenly you were far away from home, no friends around you. And that I must say, the first couple of months, that was a real struggle.
Okay.
A real struggle. I was at one point, and I had a leader that was definitely not what I expected from a leader.
Okay. How come? Just not as empathetic?
No, you know, it's like he was all the things, maybe not all, but many things that I don't believe in. You know, I believe in integrity. I believe in directness. I believe in you speak to people, you don't speak about people. And he had many things he did where I was like, you don't have integrity, you're not honest. Your behavior towards some of the team members were simply not acceptable, if you ask me. And then you might ask me, so why did you stay? I wanted the job so badly, and I had a very good mentor at this time, Christian Wolf. And I called him and said, so what am I doing now? I was ready just to pack up and go home. And he said, you have two choices. You want the job to grow, then you learn how to lead him. So you do the flip thinking. And I did. And I managed to lead him without him knowing. And then you accept certain things. But I wanted the job badly.
Well, we very much appreciate your openness and candor in this regard. Do you have some advice you mentioned, or some details on how to manage such a, let's call it a bad boss, or some, boss who's quite different?
If I start, I think that a lot of times you don't choose your boss. Yeah, you can always choose yes or no, but if you want to get into a career, sometimes you take the job because of the job and what prosperity it gives you. I think what you have to learn is to read the signals of the things that triggers a leader, the wrong and the good way. And end of the day, what every leader is looking for is people that will help them to become successful. I will not be where I am today if I've not had great people around me, because I am the success. My success is the success of all the people I have around me, and I made sure that he looked really good. Not just to look him good from a business point of view, and through that, I looked good in the job I did, or I looked like, he's on top of it, he's working hard, he's getting the things done. And that meant that he became depending on me.
Okay.
And that's a choice to make. I made the choice, and I'm happy I did it. Would I do it again? With the experience today, no. Maybe yes, I would.
Well, you got it over with, so.
I did.
And Mr. Grevy, what came after that kind of phase, after that stage?
I worked for the person for almost 3.5 years. And then there was 3 opportunities coming my way. There was to go to China. And I was really keen on going to China because it was just booming. It was, if you travel to China early, which I've done since 2006, and you saw the development in that market, it was just flabbergasting. You wanted to be there because that's where everything happened. Technology advancement, the coolest shopping experiences, and the pace of the market was just unbelievable. Then they pulled me from Reebok, and they wanted me to go back into Reebok and do apparel for Reebok as a company. And then Eric Stamming at that time, that was the president of adidas, pulled me aside and said, you're not going anywhere. I want you to do actually the boss I had's job, because they had to let him go. So I got that responsibility, which I also truly enjoyed. So, I think through the efforts I did, I proved that I was worthy of that job. And I think if there was one thing that I will give you already now that I did, and I still do today, every time the company wanted to do a change, I was like, let me do it. And I learned from it, and I became the go-to person also for we want to change. And in big corporations, change just happens all the times, and leaders are looking for who can help us do this, because a lot of people have a resistance to change, and you have a resistance to change because you're afraid to fail. And when you're afraid to fail, so where do you then look? And that I didn't have that in my head. I was just like, I'm going to do it, and that is what led me to that position.
Okay. What type of experiences did you gain in that position then?
This position then became it was a very complex business, and I say complex because I had, now I have to count, I had the accessories unit, the graphic tees, men's trainings, women's training. I had all the kids business, so I had a lot of business units. I had creation centers around the world. So I had a creation center in Shanghai, I had one in Tokyo, I had one in Portland. We opened in Vietnam, and 3 years later we then opened one up in Sao Paulo. The orchestration of getting everyone to play from the same note when you are in a creation engine where you're creating products that will land in the market 12 and 18 months ahead, making sure you have the input from all the markets, the channels, understanding customer trends, orchestrating that was the biggest learning.
All right.
And really what it came down to, and you'll hear me repeat that, it came down to bringing people together. Because you can imagine there's a lot of egos, a lot of interest, and there was a lot of conflicts. And I literally did it by bringing people together and say, this is our North Star, how do we get there?
All right. Speaking of bringing people together and you moving from places, I mean, coming from Denmark, moving to Sweden, to Germany, and then all these, I mean, how do you manage those intercultural differences, but also opportunities, different people from different backgrounds coming together, and your own experience, right, moving from place to place?
So I think there's cultural nuances in everywhere you go. And I think you have the obligation when you travel or you move or you have teams to actually do an effort to understand what are those cultural differences you have. And you only do that by asking people or do research or read about it. And I'll give you an example in Japan, and I remember it was my first or the second trip I was out. And I was sitting in a room and I was working late. And the full team was working late. There was no one leaving before me. It was like 9 o'clock in the evening. I'm like, but why are they not going home? But culturally, they don't leave before the leader leaves. That's just, and I was like, God, I didn't know that. So, if I would work late then onwards, if we didn't have a dinner, I would go and do it in the hotel so they could go home to their families. It's just one example. When I was in the Nordics, if you take Finland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, they're 4 fundamental different cultures. The Swedes is a lot about consensus. The Danes are very direct. Norwegians, they have a lot of oil, so that's where, it's a little like, yeah, we will manage, we will do. And the Finns, if you have big change, they would look at you and say, I remember Thomas Tau would look at me and say, Brian, what does you want me to do? And I get it done. No debate. So, and I'm simplifying, but what I'm saying is that if you have a genuine interest in leading through people and you're working in a multicultural environment, you have the obligation to understand.
Very insightful points. Can you tell us what happened until the time you and then was joining? You were joining basically Gant.
Yeah. So if I make it in 2007, I was asked as part of my development program, what is your career ambitions? This big hairy thing coming out. And I had seen Herbert Heine on stage many times and had meetings with him. And I was like, if I'm staying with Adidas, I will be the CEO of Adidas. And I had people looking at me and say, Brian, that's very ambitious. And do you really think you should be the one? I said, but one should be the one. And I had this notion, I really loved leading. I really love it. And I love changing and moving things forward. That's my drive. And with my mentor, I said, this is my North Star. That's what I'm going after. He said, so are you ready to do what it takes? Because your career path will not just be upwards. And I had only had upwards from until that point. And he said, what do you think it takes? And then we went through, what does it take to get to it? Is it education? Is it experience? Is it things you don't have? And I have not had a P&L responsibility. And I knew I needed a P&L responsibility. And then I pestered Roland Ausel, that was leading the sales organization on the board, and said, Roland, I want to go into a market. I want to go into a market. And then the Nordics came in 2012. And that meant I went from a SVP to a VP level at adidas, which most people don't do. But I did it because I knew it would lead me to something different. And that's when you look at your career path, don't only look at the next step, look at what it leads you to. And that means you do side turns, you do side steps, you might get less paid. I got less paid in the Scandics. I had then also promised them to come back. And 18 months later, they called me back and said, we're building a new strategic plan for 2020, which we called Creating the New. And we want you to come back and lead the general manager for training. So back to a similar space I was in. And then I was ready to fly. Because in middle of 15, I started like, I want to have the full responsibility myself. And for me, it was like I started to get frustrated with certain things. They don't make those decisions. And why are we not doing this? That it was me. And then Gant came, where I could get the CMO role first, everything from product to marketing, retail, e-com, and we jumped. And with Gant, 2 years of that, and then almost 2 years as a CEO, was a very different experience than it was with Adidas, where you come from a billion company, almost 20 billion or 15 billion at that time, to a much smaller company.
Okay. Speaking of, 2 follow-up questions on that. First of all, who approached you? Is it the typical headhunter or someone you knew, a good friend, etc.? And the second question is, what was the experience like, going from a company that you basically grew up with, so to speak, right? You knew everyone, everyone knew you. You had a track record there, to a new place where you came in the leadership role.
Yeah. So a former Adidas president for America became the CEO of Gant. Okay. And he approached me.
Got it.
So I got it through network. And I would not underestimate the power of network. I would just say that. Right. So that's what it is. If you take the big difference, when you've been with a company like Adidas, where there is so many things that you take for granted, and you actually assume they exist in every company. Everything from reporting, tech infrastructure, everything just works. I'll give you an example if I go a little back, the big difference. So I remember when I started at Adidas in the Nordics, and we were have a sales conference. And I'm like, samples are coming in. I'm saying, okay, good. We go down and pack the samples out, because that's what we did at Reebok. And they're like, no, we have people doing that. That's just one difference. And you come to Gant, and then you sit down and say, so do we have a report on that? And do we have this? And do we have this? And they look at you like, what are you talking about? And that was really a switch for me, because you had to go back. And it's the first time where I really felt like, God, I can give a lot back into a company now because of my experience. And all the things you took for granted, where they really needed. And you looked at the financials in a very different way, because you didn't have the same spending power.
All right, fascinating. I'm sure you experienced a lot of different things, and perhaps some of our students will allude to that or ask questions. One initiative you started, I looked up, was flipping the ladder, right, at Gant. Yeah. So can you maybe elaborate a little bit about that initiative and how you came up with that?
So what we had at Gant for the brands, I believe that the purpose and why you're in business and what drives an organization is extremely important, because it's what unites us. And at Gant, we had a never stop learning. That was our internal mantra. It's all about never stop learning. And the reason for that is Gant was born on the East Coast in America, in New Haven, and was part of the whole college culture, the whole preppy American culture. And from there we said, if this is what we do, how do we then stimulate that thinking? And that's where Flipping the Ladder came in. Okay. And it was about people really stimulating a very, if you do this, what is your dream? And then people's like, but I would love to do this. I think we had one that would like to be a science. We sent him to Greenland. Okay. And we filmed that. We did documentary on it, which were phenomenal. And we used it also outside to give our belief statement into the world of this is who we are, this is what we believe in. Because when you associate to brands, you normally believe in what they stand for. And that is the things you can't put a finger on. You just say, oh, I like this brand. Why? Yeah, but I like what they stand for or the product they serve. But normally it hangs together.
Got it. It seems though that, speaking of hanging together, one company started to miss you, right? Adidas. So
yes.
How come you rejoined Adidas again?
So summer of 19, Kasper Røst, the CEO at that time, Karen Parkin, called me, which was the chief HR lead, and said, listen, Kasper would love to meet you, another Dane. Previous CEO with Henkel, very successful CEO. And I was not looking for a job. I loved Gant. So we met, to make the story very short. I loved the changes he did in professionalizing the company, structuring it, putting proper governance in place, and also making the tough decisions that follows the job. And we connected. We were supposed to check in 6 months after because he had 2 board positions at that time. He was reviewing, do I take a new person in? Do I keep the people I have in? And then this was in June, and then in August I got a call that he wanted to meet me in Munich. Okay. And then he had made the decision to separate way with the CMO or the executive board member for brands. And I was like, I need a week to think about this. And I really needed a week because I had not expected it. And it was like going from leading a company, which was my aspiration, to then coming in and being part of a board. I had to get my head around that, and then there's the family conversation. And literally what drove me to the decision was this aspiration of growth. If I get to the executive board of Adidas, one of the biggest companies in the world, one of the most aspiring companies in the world, that will give me a better chance to actually become the CEO of Adidas, which was my first original thought. Because you will be part of the succession pipeline for that role. At least you'll be a candidate for it. And that's why I was like, I couldn't say no. All right. Or we couldn't say no.
What, by the way, maybe not too much into details, but how big is the family role in those decisions? I mean,
the what? Sorry.
The family role in the decision. I mean, you speak to your family, right? So
for me, it's everything. If my family is not hanging together, and it's not a joint decision, then the likelihood for it to be a failure is, at least in my world, now I'm speaking for myself, it would not work for me. In those roles here, you really need a fantastic wife, which I have, that really is side by side with you. It is also my most trusted confidence in the discussions I have. I can come home with her. I know I can talk about everything, and she will have different views than I have to things. So for me, that's critical.
All right, very happy to hear. And speaking of what did you do as a global brands leader at Adidas? And then can you tell us a little bit about your entry to Hunkemöller, where perhaps you said, you speak to your wife as a confidant, probably she knows more about the products firsthand at least.
Yeah. So what did I do with Adidas Guard? I started on the 2nd of February, and 5 weeks after Corona came. Lockdown. So we went from a campus of 6,000 people to us with security and a few financial people. I think we were maximum 40 people in campus. So if you take the Adidas journey, I would describe it in 3 layers. We had a constant flow of crisis. in the little over 3 years I was there. We had Corona, we had the second wave of Corona, we had Black Lives Matters, was a very big thing internally in the organization. We had a meat scandal in Germany, if someone recalls that, in the summer of 2020, political uproar against the company based on the rents. It then moved into the dispute where H&M and the Chinese government then went into a dispute about the Chinese cotton from up north in China, where we all were asked to take a position, and literally we were closed down. You know, all our media, all our influencers, all of it gone overnight. With, just to give you a number, we had 12,700 stores in China. It was our biggest revenue market. It was our most profitable market. So you go from 100 people in a store, as an example, to 2 or 3 a day. You can imagine the impact that has on the whole the whole supply chain, everything in the company. That was then followed by the second wave of Corona. Then we had the war starting between Ukraine and Russia, where we then had to close down our Russian business. And that was a big business for us. We had over 500 stores, very profitable business as well. You had supply chain constraints with the Suez canals, the Panama canals, you know, when the boat went on site, disrupted everything. And then if I take the last one, we then had Ye or Kanye West and Yeezy, if some of you know about that. I was in the middle of that. I was the one initiating the contract cancellation, and that was a 3-year journey with Ye. So yeah, that was crisis management on steroids. And we had one normal quarter. What we did underneath, besides saving the company, because in the beginning, from Adidas, it went from a company where we were earning a lot of money and cash was never a problem. We had no credit lines. We didn't need it. To suddenly, what are we doing now? Cash is king. How many weeks of cash do we have? And I can tell that was a spooky scenario when we realized that if we don't get something done very fast, we had around 6 to 7 weeks, and then we will run out. And that means the company is in a far bigger problem. What we did then on the besides that, we built a new strategic business plan for the company, Own the Game. We postponed it. We wanted to go live in the end of 2020. We postponed it to March of 21. And in that, in my role and remit, if I start from the top, we did a rebranding. We created a new brand architecture. We created 3 divisions. So we did a new sportswear division to really cater for the lower market of sportswear. It cleaned up the 2 other ones. We started the initiative about actually making adidas cool again, because we were not really cool. We sold products, but we were not. And we looked at it through the lens, how do we disrupt Air Force One and Dunks? And we did that with Samba, Gazelle, Tito's. I see nodding faces around. That started already in 2020. With seeding, cleaning the market, Gucci fashion show, Balenciaga, Moncler. We built a whole pipeline. That was a 3-year pipeline built for that before it took off. We came back winning and running. We put a complete innovation pipeline behind the Adi Zeros and everything that was sitting in there. We went from only having Boost, the Ultra Boost, to actually building 7 pillars of running technologies that could build and spread us out to more runners around the world. We took leadership in football, cleaned up football, and then we cleaned up a lot of sports that we saw there was no value in. Range reduction, significant range reduction, to actually make sure we were more efficient in what we did. I was supposed to, when we started to grow the organization, actually I reduced the organization throughout that time to make sure our ratios to sales became in line with the revenue, which were declining based on China, Russia, and etc. So that was the journey. I changed a big part of my leadership team. I changed the structure. We brought speed creation in. We optimized the creation centers again. God, I could talk for hours about that. it was a little over 3 years, and then Casper left the company in. He communicated August, and I think it was in end of October, beginning November. He left, and we had been in a lot of crises, and I knew that with that many crises, a new CEO is not coming from within. That's just the way that it is. There's non-emotional. Bjørn Gulden came in, actually from the other side of the street, had done Puma, which were a very interesting move. I don't think anyone had seen that. And Bjørn at Puma actually did my job on top of the CEO job. And 2 months in, we had a very open. I asked him, so Bjørn, do you want to work with me or? And he was like, you've done a great job. He said, and we actually left on good terms. And he said, if you're not to be here, it's because I want to do your job too. There's not another Brian coming in. And I took that as like, that at least is credit to the job I've done. And 2 days after, he said, listen, I made up my mind. I said, I knew you did. So let's just separate ways in a nice way. And there I'm very non-emotional because that comes with the job. In that job, there was only a sideways move, or upwards move, or you leave the company. That's part of it. That's with maturity, that's it. And for the first time in my life, I was not jumping into a new job because all the jobs I've had, when I left for Gant, I left Adidas in the evening, and the next day I was sitting in the Gant office. When I left Gant, I was on a Friday. On the Monday, I was in the Adidas office. I didn't take time off, and I had time. And this is then the first time I actually landed a job through a headhunter, the one I'm in now. And I was in discussions with 3 different brands, and I'd also promised myself, I want to choose something I can feel I would get a fire to do, and I don't want to go into a big crisis management again. And then the headhunter called, and then Hunkemöller came up, and I'm like, what is Hunkemöller? I had no idea. I had 0 idea. I was like, it's lingerie, and then my first, I cannot do lingerie. It was like, why would I even think about that? And then as I'm curious, I started reading. And actually, I went into my wife's wardrobe, and I remember I opened the drawer, and I was like, what is in here? To understand the market, it was the first impression of market, and I was like, I see a lot of basics, I see a lot of nudes, and then there's some more playful things here, but there's definitely much more of this. But as you dig into the business, and I will say today, I feel very comfortable talking about what we are serving, because there is some insights to this business you learn if you're curious enough to learn. And I'll give you some examples of what really captivated me. Is like, firstly, around 80% of all women is wearing the wrong bra. Fact. Because you don't get fitted, that means you never got the right size. The journey of the bra, and I talk just about the bra, in a woman's life changes fundamentally over the life. From your first bra, a very intimidating process, normally with your mom, how do you do that? It's a new experience. It then goes into more exploratory territories. Then you get pregnant, or if you get pregnant, then shapes changes, the needs changes. Menopause comes, that changes fundamentally. And actually, now I'll say it out loud, and most women actually, the breast size are not the same, which most people think. So there is a lot of things in this here that I was like, God, here's a lot of things to serve, here's a lot of experiences to build that is connected to a lot of stigmatism today and a lot of taboos. And the one of the most beautiful insight that was with lingerie, it is your first layer of confidence. You take lingerie on before you take makeup on. You dress it maybe thought-wise in a way that say, today I'm going to this meeting, I'm going to this date, I'm going to this, and it gives you that first layer of confidence. And that that's not me, that's woman speaking to us in research. And with that, I was like, here's an industry that I can be part of shaping and changing, asking the right questions. And what I would say that, before I maybe let you in, is like, what I saw with Hunkemöller was it was a company that had been, it was the European version of Victoria's Secret. It was a very male-gazed way of how women should wear lingerie. And honestly, I was like, that needs to change. I'm not the one looking at the models, is this the right and wrong? I'm not the judge on the products, you know. I'm asking the questions. And for us, and now today, we are a woman-led company when it comes to all design, all product, all marketing, designing for women through a lens of what woman needs is. And I think that's again, you can apply this to any industry. Anything you sell and serve to a customer. And if you want to understand what you're serving, do the research, and then you'll find solutions to a lot of things, or you can make yourself uniquely different.
All right. Very well said. I have two questions on that. First of all, I think the mission was or is, if I'm correct, the perfect bra always.
Yep.
So you mentioned 80% of women, they do not wear the right size bra. How would you know? And wouldn't it be uncomfortable? I mean, if I wore a hat, no, I mean, how does the company? No, if I wore, or, I wear contacts, so if I wear, if it's not suitable for me, I would kind of speak out. And secondly, would you be able to help as Hunkemöller? Would women be able to go into a store and you have the expertise to kind of help them find the right size, so to speak?
I would say actually that the beauty of the company I joined, that was actually one of the things that there was a good solid foundation to build from, is our store staff is educated in doing the fitting sessions. So it's not actually the problem if the store staff, I will not say we have over 700 stores, I hope they're all perfect in doing it. It's actually the threshold for a consumer wanting someone in that dressing room to do the fit. So there's actually steps before you even get into that we are working on. So we are educating our teams. We're putting a lot of efforts in training, education, which had not been in place. So this year alone, we have had 2 store manager development programs of 2 days. They're doing one as we speak, and that becomes part of the normal. That doesn't solve the full problem. We then are looking at technology opportunities. How can we do this without intruding into private life, not doing pictures of you, but actually we are right now working with a AI-led company that literally does it through data points, but it will not reveal your face, your body, or anything. It will just reveal the shape, and it will give recommendation based on that. And we believe that could be one way of really taking some of that uncomfortable moment away.
Okay. Maybe related to that, I'm not quite sure, but what's the unique kind of value proposition, the USP of Hunkemöller? I mean, why Hunkemöller?
So I can speak about now, but if I just start, when I came to Hunkemöller, Hunkemöller was in a far worse distress situation than I had thought. And we were not clear about who we wanted to be in the market. After it had been the European version of a Victoria's Secret, we went in selling a lot of products. We let a lot of discount. The stores was outdated. And I was asking the question, but why would you go to Hunkemöller versus going to another place? And I was very clear. I think we had lost connection with our customers. So what we have done now, we have a complete new brand positioning. We have a whole new brand book. And what we are doing in that is that the perfect bra is the anchor point.
This is the end point.
That's the anchor point, because if you get the bra right, you get trust. And when you get trust, you get repeat. That means the customer will come back to you. It's like, just fits me this bra. You didn't want it in different variances, etc. And that we're working on. We're not done yet, because the life cycle of creating takes longer, and innovation in a bra is pretty profound. I've been used to doing sports shoes and apparel and doing a bra. There's up to 37 components in a bra that you need to fit together to get the right support. So it's pretty technical. What we are doing then on that journey is that instead of having a lot of sub-labels, we go into what we call occasions. That means we are literally serving all our fantastic women out there with moments in a woman's life. So when I talk about moments in a woman's life, in a day, there's many moments in a woman. You know, you might start in the morning, you have your lingerie on before you go to work. You come home, you take your loungewear on because you want to hang in the couch. Then you're going to go out for a drink, and then you take maybe a body or something on that is even a different. So there's moments in a woman's life that we would like to cater for, and that we do, I would say, in a very good way with the collections that is coming out right now. And you do that so it becomes easy to shop. It is occasion-led, and it's led through those moments in a woman's life, both on a day, but also through life.
Okay, all right. Sounds very plausible. And you spoke about different products. I don't quite recall the names, but in a woman's life, so to speak. What about diversification decisions? I mean, you're also selling different things, slippers as well, perfume, etc. Why not makeup? Why not high heels? Why not? And that's a follow-up question. Maybe there's not such a market for it, but I mean, men's underwear, would that be a diversification in big market?
So what we started with, we actually started by cleaning up a lot of the sub-labels. We also had Hunkemöller Sport, and it was not performing. And but they come to our stores, and I said, but we're not a go-to destination for sport. You're competing in a field of giants, and I know how hard it was at Adidas. So we went back to say, what's the things we have to stand for? So we do the bras, the slips, we do hosiery, we have nightwear. Nightwear is an expansion, loungewear is an expansion. Here we saw there was a massive growth opportunity. We wanted to do accessories, you know, all from boob tape to strapless bras, the expanders. You can see I speak very comfortable about this. And then what we're looking at, we are working on a beauty line right now. That takes much longer to develop than because I've not done that before. Because they need to test. You need to test for allergic. You need to make sure you get the right scent, the right packaging. So that's an 18 to 24 month cycle that we're doing. We're looking at other things I can't reveal yet right now, but we're looking at things that sits in adherence to what we believe would be a natural connection to a company or a brand. And there's always a fine balance for how far you can stretch before you get away from the territory people will associate you with. I'll give you an example. We launched a super soft top with cashmere 3 weeks ago. New collection for us, not new to the market. I'm absolutely good with that. And that has shown to be a tremendous success for us. And if I would say one thing you asked about, if there were one thing you should take away from what we want to be known for, affordable luxury. And what we mean with affordable luxury is our price positioning is very, very sharp. We are way cheaper than the majority of the competition out there. But people think we're expensive. And that's the interesting part. And why do they think we are expensive? It's because we've not been good enough to articulate our value proposition. So when I talk about this, when people look at a price for a product, it's not per se the price that makes them say this is expensive. It's the way you communicate value. And value and price is two very different things. And what we have, like the cashmere, I'll give you an example. We sell that cashmere with 10% cashmere content versus our main competitor in this space with Intimissimi. They sell it for 46 euros in Germany. We sell it for 29.95. And what we are doing is that we are elevating quality across the line. That's a strategic choice we've made. No more cheap products, better product what you anticipate, affordable luxury, and comfort sits in the anchor of that. Comfort, comfort, comfort. There's no one want to have uncomfortable products on here. And that is what we now, and Cashmere was the first big launch for that, and now that will follow on all the rollouts coming.
All right, highly interesting. A few follow-up questions on that. First of all, you're a company with a long tradition, long history. So how do you balance kind of contemporary developments, technology, innovation with that tradition? Second question, you mentioned value and comfort and so on. I mean, it's a product that sits very tight on the or it's the first layer of the body. So do you work to make sure there are no allergic reactions? Like, you know, do you work with dermatologists and so on? Is that a standard approach?
If I ask, we do product testing on everything.
Okay.
A very rigid product testing. We have very clear policies, ESG policies, chemical policies. You can go through it all. actually at source to make sure that the products we are serving customers with actually is not doing any of what you just said. How do you balance a traditional company with technology? Hunkemöller will be 140 years next year. That means you have started the testimony of time, but it's not a guarantee you'll stand for the next 140 years. And I am a firm believer that you might not always have to lead technology enhancement and opportunities, but you have to be very open to ensure that you don't get disrupted by someone applying technology and then suddenly you stand as a Kodak or a Nokia. You have those. And I think the world, the way technology enablement moves today, it is fascinating what AI is doing. It is just like every week something new. You have to make sure, when do you choose to enter into an application or one of the agents? Is it scalable? Is it properly tested? Do you actually have the skills and the people in the organization to apply it and use it? So it's a delicate road we're walking on right now, but I think you have to, because otherwise we will not secure the next 140 years for the company.
That's sensible, definitely. I am very curious, so we're going to hand it over to the students soon, but I'm quite curious. So you mentioned the male gaze, male view in the purchasing decision of lingerie, and you mentioned that you would like to shift that to some extent. However, what's the criteria, and what are the criteria women buy lingerie with, so to speak? I mean, is it what men think is quote unquote good looking or appealing, or is it the comfort, or is it what women feel confident with if they look in the mirror, etc.? And secondly, speaking about beauty standards around the world, they differ quite a bit, right? I mean, some regions, cultures, they prefer curvy, others slim. Some regions prefer a tanned kind of skin, others prefer as white as possible, so to speak. How do you balance that?
God, this was many questions in one. So let me see how I answer that. So if I start with the last part you said, so we have a very successful partnership in the Middle East, and we also have it in India. And previously we would not serve them. We would not support them with products for more cover up the photo shoots that is respectful to the culture that is there. We're doing that now, because if you want to operate in a market where culture are different, you better operate within the culture you are. So we're working very closely with those teams. That's one example where you are going in and say culture is different, needs a difference. There's certain things you can do, there's certain things you can't do, and there's certain things that is insights I'll give you in India, whereas we were, even within Europe, but most part of people say when you go to bride day and you get married, it's white lingerie. That's not the case in Spain, and that's not the case in India, just two of the markets. India, it's colorful, it's red, because that has a symbolic value to the culture. So do you then go and say, oh, we only do it in white? And thereby, you will not sell, and you will just show that you don't understand culture. You have to understand the culture you operate in. Otherwise, you should not operate in the market, or I think you'll not operate successfully in the market. I'll rather say that. The first question you asked was, with the shapes and all of that. So fit is absolutely critical. We spend a lot of time on fit. If you take a bra just as an insight, there's 56 sizes for one bra if you want to serve all sizes. The complexity behind that is just massive. When I came to the company, I went into my office, and all the pictures in the office, all the campaigns we did, it was like 5 ladies in a power pose in stockings, and it was like, I was like, but that's not how it looks. That this might be how we want it to look. And that's why I used the male gaze word. So what we have now, we've changed all our photography. All our communication it's softer. Instead of being outwardly sexy, it's much more sensual when you want to be sensual. We try to put the products into the occasions that you shop for. So we have a cozy campaign out now all around loungewear and nightwear. And it's all about the moments when you're using those, might be the morning with the coffee, it might be hanging in the sofa, trying to install it visually into something where you can recognize yourself and say, this is where I actually use it. And then for me, I also know how Hunkemöller was, that there was a lot of men sitting around the table and choosing models. And they asked me in the beginning, said, do you want to? I said, no, that's not me. You know, that's I don't believe that's my role. That's the role of my creative director, my marketeer team. You're the one, and you make sure then we are diverse. And that's also how we look at it. You know, everyone is welcome at Hunkemöller. Okay. That's also why we don't go out and say, oh, it's one group we're going to cater for. Because when people say, don't you want to be more inclusive? And I'm like, we're inclusive by inviting everyone. Why would I highlight another group versus another group? Because then I'm not inclusive anymore. So everyone is welcome at us. And that's also what we try to portray in our photo shoots and in the models we use to have that. Then you can say, if I must add to that part, we have around 3,500 article numbers. For us to do a photo shoot on the products that has different size, you want to see the skin color, that where you say, I want to see the product actually so it resonates who I am, so I recognize myself in that. That simply in today's world, it's not possible for us to do because it is so costly and it will take so much time. AI will provide solutions for that. And then people say, but AI models, that's fake, that's not real. But there's solutions around this. And then it becomes, and this is some of the tough choices we're going through right now. How far do you take it? We still believe that having real models is important for us because we don't want this, it just have to be perfect. You know, if you look at our models, we have models that have given birth with the stretch mark after being pregnant and those things. And it's about showing the beauty of the womanhood out there. And I think, will it be perfect? I don't think we'll ever be perfect because there's so many nuances. But I can say we are doing our utmost to serve our female audience around the world.
Okay. Let's move maybe into the personal space a little bit. Can you tell us what a typical day, if there's such a thing, of you, of a CEO of Hunkemöller looks like? When do you start? What do you do first? And so on. How long do you work?
Oof. God, how long do I work? No, so it starts, I would say I'm an early bird. My wife is a little more early bird. So it actually starts around 6 o'clock. I hear her walking down, putting the coffee on. She knows I'm hearing it. I walk down 10 past 6, and we normally then spend half an hour just talking. No phones, nothing. I get my first 2 cups of coffee, and then I'm like, I need to see the sales numbers from yesterday. So at 6:45 exactly, the sales number from the day before comes in. And that is what you live by in retail, you know, click up, how was it, you know. They gave me an app where I could look at it at any given time. I had to delete it because I was looking at it all the time and it didn't really make me sane. So that starts, the kids wake up. Normally if you can talk to my daughter in the morning, that's not always the case. Go away, and then I get a lot of talks before I leave. So at around 7:30 I leave. And then I have a 30 minutes drive to the office. Get a coffee, walk around. I love walking around the office. It's my favorite. And I normally have my first hour freed. So I don't have any meetings from 8 till 9. It's just for me to, what is the day about? What happened yesterday? Is there any big things coming that we need to make sure we are aligned on? And then you can say, the only thing that's a constant for me, that is twice a week I meet with my board for half an hour, stand-up meeting, 9 o'clock, no agenda, just around the table, anything happened. It can be people related, it can be business, it can be a short update, or there's nothing and we just drink a coffee and get started together. So we do that Monday morning, we do that Thursday before we go to the weekend. We have weekly board meetings, which I think is very untraditional for a lot. So we meet 2 hours every week. One is about transformation. All the transformation topics we do, where are we, anything happening, any deep dives. And then there's one which is more about board topics we are going through. Then my supervisory board meetings are standard, that's every quarter. I have those. I have planned in, normally we do 2 offsites with the top 40 leaders a year. Now I'm just talking about the things that is the same. Then the budget process is normally having a cadence to it. And then everything else, I have one-on-ones. I have one-on-ones further down the organization. I'm part of team meetings. So the beauty with my job is that I don't have 2 days that looks the same. And I love that. There's new things coming up. I'm here today, but I didn't plan for 2 months ago. And that means you become, as a CEO, you a lot of topics you're not in depth into, but you are part of everything. And your role is literally to navigate that space and say, something is not good here. Now I go deep. And when you go deep, you go deep. You are the one that also feels the frictions between teams, So a lot of the things you do is you like I said, I'm half psychologist. And a good advice in that is that, if people come with things, I normally try to say, have you solved it? So I ask a lot of questions back. Because if you get involved, then you suddenly are involved. And what you really want to build is an organization or a leader that can make decisions by themselves. So it's a people's game.
When does your work day end? And do you have free weekends? Do you travel a lot?
God, my days never end. I would put it like this, and now I'm maybe it's because of my age and what I grew up with. As a CEO, you're always on, one way or the other. If my owners from America, they call, or I call, that can be 10 o'clock in the evening. I do the call at 10 o'clock. If there's a crisis, that we work till we're done. An interesting thing is that I never looked at the job as a job. It's part of me. I love it. And that means that it just works. Then back to the family. It's important you have an understanding partner, family, that where you're on the same page. My wife, if I call her and say, listen, I'm not home for dinner, and normally if in a good day, I will leave the company around 6. Eat, be part of putting the kids to bed, and then I might do some read or some emails later on. So if you look at my average week would be at least between 50 and 60 hours at minimum. All right. But it doesn't feel like that, it's like that's part of it.
Do you travel
I travel. So I would say with Hunkemöller, since the majority of our markets is North Europe, I've been to Middle East, I'm going to India now, so I'm not traveling so much long distance like with adidas, I would be, when Corona was not there, I would travel at least 150 days a year. Okay. And then you go Portland, West Coast America. You might go into New York on your way back. You come home for a week, then you'll go to Tokyo, and then you go to Shanghai, and then you'll go to Latin America. So you live in a constant jet lag. You learn to live with it. Today, after I get away from it, it's tough. But I love traveling.
All right. Let's perhaps wrap our conversation up with a number of quickfire questions. Some are perhaps a bit personal. So what type of food do you like?
I love Italian food.
Okay. Any favorite dish?
Oh my goodness, any favorite dish? Vongola would be a very nice thing to serve.
Okay. What about music? What type of music do you like to listen to?
Oh, there is so many names when you said it, but I love Queen.
Okay.
You love Queen? Very good.
All right. What about hobbies?
So hobbies now, besides working, we love skiing. Okay. Really love skiing, and we my kids, believe it or not, they actually go in a racing school in Amsterdam, where they drown brushes twice a week, and I'm out there with them and doing it from time to time.
Okay, maybe perhaps related. What about your favorite vacation spot?
Oh, can I have 2?
Sure.
Good. So it's definitely the mountains in winter. Okay. Austria, Italy, the Dolomites. Back to the skiing. We love the skiing. And since 10 years, we have a finca on Mallorca, which is our summer holiday, where we are in the summer. And my kids have grown up with that place, so it's really like home.
Okay.
So that has a lot of meaning to us.
Got it. Speaking of vacations, are you more the plan ahead type or the just go with the flow?
My wife decides.
Yeah. All right.
She is the CEO of that, and I've learned my lessons through that. I have, she does it all. And I'm like, I follow. And I was like, where do you want to go? I'm going to follow. And I love that. And I will tell you why I love it is I don't have to make the decision. It is so refreshing. And she's like, no. And that's where partnership comes in.
Okay. If you were stranded on an island by yourself, you cannot bring anyone, not even your wife, what thing would you bring with you?
Oi, that's a difficult one. I'll bring a boat so I could get away from there.
Very pragmatic. Coffee or tea? You mentioned coffee, right?
Yeah, I am. It's interesting. I am coffee in the morning, and after lunch, then it starts. If I get too much, then I'm actually drinking tea, like a lot of English, with an Earl Grey and then with a squeeze of milk in it.
Got it. Let's talk about sports. Handball, Mikael Hansen or Lars Christiansen?
Oh, Mikkel Hansen, by a mile. Best handballer ever.
So he indeed is your favorite, or?
I would say if I go through today and I look at the Matthias Gissel that plays in Berlin now, he's just an unbelievable handball player. The speed they play with and the goals. Now he's been second time world best. He is an unbelievable handball player.
Got it. If you weren't in the apparel industry or a CEO, what kind of secret job would you have had? What would you be now?
What would I do? I would do something with people. That's definitely one thing. It's an interesting one. Maybe I flip it a little. At one point when you come to the autumn of your career, which I am in, I'm 54, almost 55. I actually I would love to give back. And that could be faculty, that could be NGOs, but there's something you have that, I've been given so much, and I think I have things I could give back. So it will be in that space, either giving back through the educational system or it will be NGOs.
All right, well, you're certainly giving back today, your knowledge, your experience, and we're very grateful. Maybe one more question. If you could choose a superpower, like one of those fantastic, invisibility or something, is there one you...
I would love to be able to travel in time. Can you imagine that? Going back and have a dinner with the Kennedys and, there's many people I would love to get into the brains of.
Got it. Let me wrap it up with one last question. Please allow me this question, Mr. Grevy. If you work very hard, had a very storied career, decision maker in many different organizations. If you look back in a few decades at all the things that you've achieved, what type of achievement, what type of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I can give it very clear. If I take Hunkemöller, what I would like to have a legacy for is that when I leave the company I leave is in a better space than I found it. The organization will not feel that I have left because the leadership that I've built is so strong in leading the company, and at least given the company the foundation to be able to exist for another decade, because that's I think is the ultimate responsibility you have when you lead a company, is leave something behind that was better than you found it. And what everyone needs to remember, and this is good advice, we all think we are so important when we're in the roles. Trust me, the day you walk out, the things moves on. And it's just, I've seen it, I experienced it. So I think that for me would be the most, and a culture of that is built on trust and belonging, where people really dare to change, do mistakes, and just continue to move forward.
Well, we're confident you're certainly the right leader to do that, and wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for taking your time and being here. So you mentioned that you're, of course, really hardworking, but also family is most important to you. So I'm really curious on a specific topic. So you're a Dane, so I'm wondering what role does the Hygge lifestyle play in your life, and whether it follows you through all the different paths of your career. Thank you.
It absolutely has. It's a really good question. So if there's one thing we love when it comes weekend, that is to Hygge. And what it really, I don't know if I can, if you have to buy the book, but it's like our kids with us, we love to hang as a family. That can be games, that can be just sitting for yourself, read, pick up some food. It's just about the coziness of not doing anything and just really tune out. That is what Hygge is about. And we've done that all the time with our kids, and we love it. I don't have to be around people all the time.
Hello, I am Baklina. I am a bachelor student here at TOM. My question is that I saw that the previous CEO of Hunkemöller stayed for 15 years. How difficult was it for you to take over after 15 years, keep the good things that he did? Were they like small things that he did good, and then bring your own thoughts and your own ideas?
So I think when you come into a company, your role is to build from what was built. And I always say that, that will be the same the day I leave my role. I would have done good things, I would have done less good things. And I don't dwell on the past, so I'm literally building on the future and say, how do I take the best of what Philip created, and how do I create something better out of that and more future-proof? And when I leave, someone else would hopefully do the same to move the company forward. 15 years as a CEO is a long time. And now I'm speaking very openly. I don't think it's good for any company. So I'm all practically firing myself in a few years from now. And there's a very good reason, and this is not on Philip specifically that was there before me. I believe that you have a forehand as a CEO. You bring something in that the company needs in that moment in time. And you're playing your best forehand, and at one point, you'll start to play the same game all the time. And that means the company doesn't develop, or the people don't develop. And I think you have to have that self-reflection that I believe a good tenure is between 5 and 8 years. It's not more. And rather the lower side of it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Grevy, for coming today. My name is Jessica, and I'm a master's student at TOM. So you've been working in the apparel industry for more than 20 years, and you've probably seen a lot of people with different personalities and characters, but also different people in different styles. So I would like to ask if there's any advice on how we should view ourselves when we style, how we style or dress when pursuing our own careers, or if that is something that we should work on and focus on. Thank you so much.
I think this is a very good question. I am a believer that the merit you bring, your personality, how you behave, is some of the most important traits you have. How you individually express yourself with how you dress, I'm not going to be a judge for that. It's of course, let's say you go into a industry where there is a dress code, and you come to an interview and you are completely the opposite. What is your chance if that is a underlying view to it? But I believe in the individuality is so important, and I actually think today, which I'm very happy about, is that people are much more allowed to be who they are. If you take tattoos, so I have a lot of tattoos, and I got them at that time where tattoos was actually associated with you're part of a biker club or you're a criminal. And I will give you, and then because it's such an important one, and my dad, I remember when he saw it, or my mom saw it first, and I had done all, and she was like, "What is this? This must be fake." And she stopped. I said, "No, it's real." And my dad came home, and it was a big drama. And it was a big drama. My dad like, "You will never create a career anymore." And I've poked him a few times that went pretty well afterwards. I actually think it's the way you conduct yourself. Behavior, integrity, being proactive, being positive. So your personality is what's going to drive you forward. And show your individuality. We don't want the same people around us. That is so boring.
But that's not an encouragement to get a tattoo for a career, right? That's very individual.
I stopped here. I didn't get it all the way down because I was like, God, if that might be killing it. But I'm still contemplating on potentially continue.
Hi, my name is Tamara, and I'm a management and technology student at TUM. And I saw online that you have an initiative, a sustainability initiative called Thinking Tomorrow. And we didn't talk much about that today, so I'd like to know more about that and the product line, and also maybe what you foresee as an internal challenge in achieving your goals.
So sustainability is very high on our agenda. Now we didn't touch on sustainability, but if I start with sustainability, it's your passport to operate today. It's your passport to be in business. And in sustainability, there's many aspects to it. It's everything from our supply chain, water consumption, chemicals. It's a child labor, and you go through all of those parts. You move it to electricity consumption within all our store fleets, how our people move to and from work. So if you look at that whole, that is what this is about. This is about us leaving a better footprint behind us, because when you're on apparel, we are consuming of the natural resources of the earth, irrespective of how we do it. I don't think we will start walking around naked, all of us, and stop doing it. Thereby, actually, the activities we do are really on that. What we are doing right now, we are preparing, at least for Hunkemöller, because we are a mid-sized co-company, we will start reporting on GDPR. We're doing all the test runs right now, and then we'll start reporting coming into next year. For a European company, it's a big complexity. So the administration we are getting on us is it's not going to help the world. I am very honest with you. Spreadsheets is not the things that's going to change. It's the activities we do, and those we are very firm on. We will continue doing. We are looking right now at livable wages. We're conducting all the research. So we have in our policies, most companies has, when you are in the Far East or you are in the Middle East producing, we have what we call a minimum wage that follows the country, the policies. And right now we're looking at livable wages, which actually is moving them up to more middle class income. So we have now 2 countries. I will actually see that next week. And I believe that's something that we will do. We'll do the full supply chain, and I'm very certain we will move into that space and start to pay more to people that is producing our goods.
Hello, Mr. Grevy. Oh, wow. My name is Omar Aslan, and I'm a bachelor student here at the TUM. You made a lot of statements throughout today, like you really wanted the job, or if you hung around the right people, you would become the CEO of Adidas. And for me, this shows like how passionate and how ambitious your mindset was growing up. However, I have heard a lot of people who have said like these sort of things and have had the same mindset, but they haven't managed to reach the same heights as you have in your career. So what I would like to ask is, what do you think you did or do differently that sets you apart from these other people?
God, that's a good question. What I believe maybe is something I have believed in is the openness to change. That I was the person people would come to within Adidas or Reebok or other places that would like to change. So I became this like custodian of driving things forward, not being afraid of doing it. That was one. I've always tried to treat people with respect around me, and show up. When I show up, I show up. And I think what it does, and that's the part that most people maybe neglect, is, yeah, but I've done a good job. But if no one knows you're doing a good job, then no one knows. So you also have to do part self-promotion of the things you're doing. And how do you do that? You do that by getting exposure. And how do you get exposure? I've done that through being change agent. And the second thing I've done, I've put a lot of efforts in leading in people. So that means when people have been asking about me, I think a lot of times they've heard something good. Otherwise, I don't think I'll be where I am today. That's about, it's always hard for yourself to self-evaluate yourself, but I think treating people with respect, treating people the way you want to be treated. If you do that, that will carry you a very long way. And then I would say for growth, you need a portion of luck, because the job has to be there when you're ready to take it, and then you need to be the right profile for it. But I am a believer that the more you are driving your own drive towards those goals and make sure people are aware of where you would like to go, and that's nothing being arrogant, that's just, you know, I want to go here, that's what I would like to do, then you succeed. I think a lot of people, when they don't succeed, when they start to listen to all the clutter around them. You will meet, all of you, people in your life that will try to take you down. They will tell you, why should you do that? It's a human nature. And I can say, for me, I have, in my closest friendship, I have 4 friends, and I've had a lot of people through my life that came and left. And not because if I meet them today, we will still be talking, but we wanted different things of life. And that's the part that is tough. But there will be people that are going to build you. There will be people that are going to be supporting you. Surround yourself with those. And if you have people around you that don't want the best for you, I would question if they really are the friends they're supposed to be. And you will all experience that in life.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Grevy. My name is Zheng Wang from Master in Management. My question is quite short. Do you see anything consistently leading you to who you are today, either faith or desire to be successful or supporting for your family, your friends? Yeah.
For me, it's honesty, it's integrity. It is I'm coming back to those things are for me very, very important. That, you know, with my friends, we speak the truth with each other. Also the things that hurts. And I think if you do that, then you're in a space of trust. And I think if you trust each other, then, you know, everything else builds from that. I believe that everyone is a leader. If you go in, and that means that if you are not leading a team, you're still a leader. And what I mean with that is that you lead in how you show up, you lead in how you treat other people, and that's the same for the leader, and that's for everyone. And if you do that, then I think people will look through the lens and this is a good person we're dealing with here. It's a person that treats people irrespective of levels in the same way. The worst thing you can do as a leader, and you're conducting, like let's say some of you want to crawl the ladders and have more and more responsibilities, and then you start to treat the people in the reception and in the warehouse or the gardener or whoever is around as sub people to you. That I don't believe in that, because you just lose respect, and you're not honest and you're not authentic. Everyone has a role to play. And I can tell you, in our company, the most important people we have, and I say most important, but the receptionist, you go into a company, the receptionist you meet will give you the first signal of how a company is. Are they happy? Are they welcoming? Or are they, I say good morning to my receptionist team every day. I joke with them. Betty and the team, I love those guys. They're the first people meet in our company. It's the same with our store managers. They might not have the same responsibility I do, but they still have a massive responsibility. And I think if you treat people the way you want to be treated yourself, and you remember that on your way up, because one day it goes down. The elevator goes 2 ways. People will treat you with the same integrity when you climb down or you fail.
So, good afternoon, Mr. Brian. My name is Xingyue Zhu. I'm a bachelor student at TUM. My question is, how do you view the central role that AI, especially generative AI, plays in Hunkemöller's long-term brand strategy?
So, I think I touched on AI earlier. AI is here to stay, and it will play a role. And it will make certain roles obsolete. Repetitive work where people are doing the same thing over and over again, those things are disappearing as we speak. I can give you an example. Customer service today for us, we have robots in now taking over 70% of the calls. That's one thing where that's been some of the fast pace. So you will see in the finance areas things is happening. You take translation, for example. You take campaign ideas. You know, we can create a campaign idea in where before it would take months. We can do that in a day now. So it's definitely changing how we work. It will also change some of the skills and the capability of the people that has to join the company. Then I think as a company, you have to be careful you don't drop it to every single thing that AI will generate for you, because then you can create a lot of confusion. So you need to make sure you pace where you need it, where does it add value to the organization, and how do you get the organization with you. And we view it at Hunkemöller, it's the superpower, the superhuman power that we are giving to our people. Because that's what it really is. It enables our people to make faster decisions, enables to take administration work out that is, oh God, do I now have to do this again? We've all been through that. But we still need very smart people, and we need smart people that can ask the questions and make sure that you're developing AI in the right way. And so it will definitely play a role, not only for us. I would put it like this: if you don't embrace AI and what is enabling, you could become new Kodak or Nokia, which I said earlier. You have to be on the forefront with technology. But then it's the pacing of how you implement it.
Hi, my name is Royal Yan, and I'm a bachelor student at TUM. So you mentioned that you enjoy selling stuff to people. My question is, did your previous experience as a sales director help you to become a CEO?
I think every role I've had, from picking mushrooms in my early days, standing at a gas station, has led me to where I am today. And actually, I think the roles I've had through my career have given me the insights of all parts in a career movement that allows me to be able to understand and speak to all levels in the organization. Sales director is just one path of that. It's not the only path that I think has been helping me. I think every role I've had has actually been part of shaping me to be honored to have the role I have today.
My name is Henrik. I'm really curious about your handball position. I used to play handball, and maybe you can link that position to your leadership style today.
So I played left wing, or I was in the kites. In German, I think you said kites. And I was defense. I was in the position one that was lying around there and pesterizing all the ones coming in. What sport has done, particularly if you've done team sports, what team sport does, it learns you the locker room mentality about being a team. Because you win, you lose, you have defeats, you have injuries. You learn so much from that sports environment, and I've definitely taken that with me. That at Gant, I have a very clear decision hierarchy. It's very simple. It's always the decisions we do what's best for the brand. That's the same in team sport. You always do the best decisions for the team and for the club, not for the individual. Then we have fantastic, and then we work as a team, because I believe teamwork is critical, irrespective if it's directly or indirectly. If you can't work with teams, then you should not lead big organizations. And that's again back to sport. It's you work as a team. You know, if you have a guy, I don't know, when you watch football, you have the guy, I'm not defending. You know, then it goes wrong. It's the same in handball. I'm not running home for the defense. You know, then it goes wrong. But then you need the best individuals, and that is really important. And I have the philosophy: I don't want yes sayers, and I definitely don't want mini Brians around me. You get 6 or 7 of me around me, but then you just get me. That's the same with the handball team. You know, you look at the Danish national team, which is one of the best, because they understand we're here for Denmark. We play as a team, and some people sacrifice themselves for the team. You know, certain people are just doing defense, even though they're good defenders. And then they have some individuals that just, when the game changes or has to change, they step up and do the unexpected. And that for me is, if you get that, then God, I've had those a few times when you get the teams in place and you're like, now it happens. And then your job becomes how more to steer, how fast do you run, how fast do you go back, you know, that is so, that's how I view it.
Hello, Mr. Grevy. I'm Leticia. I have a very personal question for you because you talked earlier about how you had a tough management for 3.5 years. And I wanted to ask you, how did you not abandon your dreams to become CEO in this tough time?
That was actually what kept me going. It was first when I started with the person, I so desperately wanted the job. I wanted that global experience, and it was like a dream job for me. And what kept me going was I knew it would build me to something else. And that's literally how I just kept going. And I had a lot of frustrations. I had a lot of places also where I was like, do I stop? Do I go back? Because it's uncomfortable. And I saw things that was not nice. I saw how you could abuse a company, travel around the world, you would do things morally you would not do. And of course it makes you question, is that what it means to be in those positions? Is that accepted? And in my view, it was like, I don't think we should accept that, because that's one part that everyone needs to be aware of. When the more you go into leadership, it's the small things. Everyone sees everything you do. They read into everything you say. So you have to have a thick skin. And I think I learned that at that time. And it was in 2007 I put my own aspiration out that I wanted to be a leader and I wanted to be a CEO. And then afterwards, you know, I worked focused against those goals.
Hello, my name is Wael Alouche. I'm a student here in Masters at HHN. And my question is, I did also an internship at the typical consumer brand. And I had the impression that everyone around me in the team has like a big passion for the brand and is using it in his private life. How important for you is that passion for the consumer brands, for example, that you worked before at Adidas? Is for you a colleague that has a big passion for using the products more important than having, for example, a proper skill set? So how important is that passion?
You prefer would like to combine it, but I think you need to have some. If you have passion for what you do, you can move mountains, because then you're going to learn the rest. So I will come back to it again to say, you know, that's always what's the beauty by working with brands is you create that feeling of belonging. You work for something bigger. You're part of a camaraderie. You're part of something that really is part of that. So if I look at that, when I interview today, the CV is your access point to get to the interview. But I don't do the 1-hour interview on your CV. Tell me what you did here and what did you do here. I'm curious about what's the person behind it. What made you achieve what you did in that CV? Who are you as a person? And I would say most people that hires, if you can convey that, then you convey something very powerful. And the passion is what you need to convey, because with passion, I believe you can convey any obstacles. But I would not hire one if the person didn't have any foundational skill sets for the role the person is going into, just because the person is passionate. You know, you have to have some skill sets for the role you're applying for.
So at Adidas, for example, nobody would get his head chopped off if he came with Nike on. And
oh yeah, no, you did, no, that was no go. Oh no, you don't. There you have a very clear threshold. And it's the same. You would be fired. No, I'm serious about. That would say if I would work at Nike and will go in with a pair of Adidas shoes, you would be fired. That is just such a level of disrespect for the brand you're part of.
Thank you.
So sorry to follow up, but people wouldn't go from head to toe in Adidas then every day.
No, what we had, there was a lot of Adidas on.
Okay.
There was, and we also had, if you've ever been to Herzegovina and you've been to the campus, it is like, it's like Willy Wonka's for sport. It's just unbelievable. You can do everything there, and we embrace it. You have climbing walls, you have a 4,000 square meter gym, you have an Olympic pool, you have basketball, tennis, football, track and field, beach volley, paddle. God, what else do we have? We want people to do sport. There's a basketball court. And that means people come in sport, people do sports in lunches. So that's also how you create the environment that is so precious.
All right.
Hello, my name is Ezgi. My question is about, because that you said that you're interested in sports, I can guess that you're interested in Adidas, but now you're working in a different field that you're not that familiar. So my question is, which brand do you think that developed your mindset as a leader?
I would have to attribute a lot to Reebok and Adidas, because you particularly with Adidas, you come into such a big company where the insights you get, the customer insights, the innovation pipeline you can build, the marketing machine, the sports marketing assets, all the musicians you have. It's a powerhouse for learning what great looks like, how processes work, how you operate those. You learn great things from those companies. So I would have to attribute a lot of my intellectual knowledge about those things and my curiosity about them definitely is born there. And I would say with Gant and now with Hunkemöller, I'm using a lot of those things I learned into those companies because a lot of those things were not there. Then smaller companies has different advantages because they are more nimble, they are faster. You can move things much faster than you can in a super tanker like Adidas. I'll give you one example. We did last year. We knew we needed a new store concept desperately at Hunkemöller, and it took us from sitting 4 people in a room to opening the 4 stores of the first store in Utrecht 10 weeks. In Adidas, that would be a minimum 18-month process. So you also learn some things where you say that I would not replicate, but you learn what great looks like. You really do.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon over here. Hi, my name is Maritza. I am an MMDT student at TUM, and I want to ask you that you told us about a lot of circumstances that happened during COVID and after COVID. I would say that those were very difficult times and that you needed certain mindset in order to emerge as a very good leader, not only in your as a CEO, but also in your personal life. Could you explain to us a little bit about that mindset? Because those were very difficult times. And I think in our lives, difficult times are about to come all the time,
Yeah.
How did you manage to do it? And thank you so much.
It's a really good question because what happened with COVID, no one had been prepared for. We've never tried it before. There's not a business school. There's not a case study. There was nothing you could lean back on. And at least what I learned, and I would say what I learned was the resilience level I had, and also with my colleagues, was far higher than I thought, because it was about making the company survive. We didn't know how long. We didn't know what would happen, and we had over 60,000 people certainly being responsible for. And I think that was the heaviest drag. That responsibility I had never tried before. And you knew if we would not succeed by financing the company, steering the company, making the decisions, at least in the beginning, there would not be an Adidas. That's what you looked at. What we did, we actually came really close together as a team. It was suddenly all rules were gone. It was back to what is most important for us to survive. Cash, cash, cash. We need a credit line. We We need to stop all outflows. We need to get as much money in as possible. We need to stock our stock. So you developed a sense of urgency that just continued, where until COVID, I've been through crisis, but then it was a crisis for 2 weeks, and then you dealt with it, and then you moved on, and then you had normal quarters for a year, and then something would happen. But this magnitude was big. It required, one thing was the communication to our people. You know, suddenly, you know, Teams, Zooms, all of those things, you know, you communicated through different vehicles. Normally we at adidas, we would have town halls like this here, just in a much bigger building, where you spoke to people. So suddenly, how do you communicate to people? How do we ensure that we also understand how people are doing? How do we create products? So it flipped everything upside down for us. The one thing I took out was that being connected as a team, understanding that the team needed to hear from you, was really big. God, that's a very deep question that I could speak or reflect over much more, because I think that when we went, we're not even in a normalized way yet. And I would say it like this: if you've not been leading through COVID, and if all the incidents I talked about, and you would come in to lead a company today, the disruptions now is AI. We lived in a global world which became more and more global, that actually is becoming less global right now. We have more friction in the world than we've ever had. And that means the world has changed. That's another change, you know, everyone, when we're just a global business now, everything goes in, everything comes together, and now trade tariffs and wars and all the things that is sitting on here has definitely changed the world. And I think we've become more polarized as a world as well, and in our communities. So I think as a leader, you need to be agile, and you're not just leading your business anymore. You need to really understand what's happening in the world around you, with the impacts that comes to it. So I'm definitely more resistant to crisis than I've ever been. But you also wish for, can we not just go back to a world where we are kind again? Maybe, just a little. I think it'll make the world a much, much better place.
Hello, my name is Mohammed. I'm a student at TUM in management. So this is a bit of a hypothetical, and it's maybe far-fetched, but I'm kind of curious. So early in your career, you were looking at the CEO of Adidas, and then when you return to Adidas, you're looking at CEO. Let's just say the job becomes available again, and you're approached. Would you actually go back to Adidas?
God, I got that questions before, and I said no. And you know, I think you join a company twice, which I did, and I think my appetite, I love Adidas, I still love it, but I think that train has left the station for me, if I'm very honest. I truly enjoy what I do today, and if I would do another gig, I would do something else. That doesn't mean if they would call, would I have a conversation? I think I would have a conversation. I don't think I could not. But it's not, I've normally very fast react and said, no, I'm not going back. I've done it, done. You know, the last 3.5 years I had with all the crisis, I think that put a stamp on me.
Hi, my name is Sota, and I am a bachelor student at TUM. So you've worked and took leadership in different countries and companies, and you've experienced like a different culture and working environment. In Japan, for example, hierarchy by status is really huge thing. So my question is, did you change the way or style of how you took the leadership, or has the environment changed you, how you take the leadership?
This is a good question. So as you want to acknowledge and learn about the cultures you want to work in, I think they are really important. You need to understand, what are you working in, what's the culture. I think the flip side, or not the flip side, what your role is as a leader to say, you work for a company where the company has a culture. And the culture has no borders. It has an understanding of the cultures you operate in. And what I tried to do was always say, guys, this is how we work together. So you literally find a common ground of how do we work, what's important for me, what's important for you. So you take some parts of the local cultures out of way how you work together, And we used a lot of time of that at Adidas and in the other companies going through that. So that's how you create the belonging and trust, while you are respecting those individual cultural moments. But normally, the way I say it, when you sign up for a company, make sure you understand what culture you're signing up for, because that's really important. Is it something you're connecting to? Is it something you want to work for? Do you resonate with that? If you don't, the likelihood you're going to be happy in that job's going to be small, I will believe, because we are not driving, and at least most people are not driven by just the title. They're driving by, how can I contribute? How do I feel? Is it a culture I really thrive in? And is it fit to my basic levels of what's important for me? So those are important questions. But to say it, I believe as a company, if you have a strong culture, that can literally bring different cultures together about against a common goal.
Thank you for coming today. My name's Ivan. I'm a master's student in information engineering. With your love for sports and your experience working for sports companies, I was curious if there's any sporting company right now for which you like the direction they're going in. And this could be the leadership of the company or whatever drives it and where they're going.
I would say if there's a company that I have admired on how they've carved out a space, is actually On. And the reason for it is that they went in with they were brave enough to say, we go in with one product, one technology, and they were very clear about who they wanted to serve. And I think the way they built that company with high quality products, targeting, they're not cheap shoes. I think they did that phenomenal, and they are plus 2 billion euros today. And I remember when they popped up, we were like, actually a little like how we looked at Under Armour back in the days. Yeah, but that will disappear again. But it shows, if you're clear about your customer proposition and your value proposition, you dare standing to it, you do it. And I think they've done a good job of actually widening out their concept right now. They have some beautiful apparel lines in there. I think that if I look at how the Anta group right now is addressing the whole outdoor space by buying up and really building the whole premium and having a back end to it, that is a very smart move as well. Because you own the end-to-end, so you literally own the end-to-end. There's no one earning money in between besides what you're selling to the customer. So that's a different disruption, where normally in most companies, your supply chain, you buy your services, you buy your products, and then the front end is led by a brand, and they actually just brought it together. That's also a very smart move. But On, as a newcomer, in what they've done in such a short period of time, I applaud.
Hello, my name is Leonardo. I study at the University of Heilbronn. You mentioned before that your past roles led you to where you are today, and my question is, at what point of your career did the perspective of doing the job and seeing the job as a part of your life because you love it shifted?
God. I think it started, I think my upbringing was, since I came from a lower middle class family, that if I wanted things, I had to work for them. We were 4 boys. If I needed the Levi's jeans, the 501 at that time, I think they're actually back in trend again. They might be, my dad would borrow, and my mom and dad would borrow me the money and say, but we can't afford that for 4 kids, so you can borrow and you work your way through it. And I think that established, at least with me, that thing, if you want something, you work for it. And that might be how I then looked at it when I started in the sports store. And I started in a sports store that was family owned, and I was part of everything. I was buying, I was washing the windows, you did everything. And I treated the store like it was my own. And maybe it's just my personality. I don't know if it's different, but it's been there with me all the time. It's the same with Reebok. We went through hardship at Reebok when I started 6 months in. And, I would sell in the day, and I would print out the orders, and we'll go down to the warehouse and pack in the evening with the guys. And I did that because that was to get the company through it. And I think those things shaped me. And I've always since then looked at the companies like they were my own. I have a philosophy: would I spend €1 in Hunkemöller if it was my own money. And I think if you have that philosophy, that also gives some integrity, and it gives also that you show responsibility for the company you work for.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Grevy, it's a pleasure. My name is Noor, and I'm master's in TUM, i.e. Information Engineering. And you mentioned twice, I think, the fact that you had a mentor and he helped you a bit with your decision making. And as someone who's like young, still very early getting into the professional life, ambitious, hard work and all that, but sometimes, you know, a bit lost in terms of decision making. Can you tell us a bit more about like how was your experience having a mentor, how to identify a mentor, and can someone be their own mentor in case they cannot find one? Thank you.
I definitely believe having a mentor or a coach or an advisor or whatever you call it is a very, I would wish I had gotten the advice even early in my career. And the way when I I asked Christian Wolf, he was an MD for Reebok in the Scandics, and he had done other leadership roles. And I thought, listen, I would learn from him, and I respect him also as a human being. I think he was a great leader. I really respected him. And I think you need to find someone where you have a chemistry. It has to be, is there someone that I can learn from? Because you're there to learn from the person. And I think you have to have the openness to say it's a never done thing. And I can say in my Hunkemöller role today, I'm in dialogue with 2 people I'm going to bring in as an advisor to me. Very, very top-notch professionals, done fantastic roles, fantastic humans, and with both of them, and interesting also for them, it's like first is their a personal chemistry. How we actually can we communicate, because you have to trust them with a lot of insights, and you're asking for advice, and I have truly learned a lot from them and used them. Because they're not in the company. You know, if you sit with a colleague, and especially when you come up to high, you're not always sure about who can I trust. Can I really trust everyone implicitly? And an outside mentor is, at least in my experience, that's someone you can trust. That's where you can be vulnerable and you can say, God, I have a fear for this, or who, this is happening right now, what would you do? And they will literally go through their experience of here's what I did, and then it's up to you to choose if you can find meaning in it or not. But I would encourage all of you, have trusted people or have someone around you that can also give you the things that hurts, because no one is perfect. Neither I'm not perfect either. Oh God, I have my blind spots as a leader as well.
My name is Mariam, and I'm doing masters in STOM. My question is that you mentioned about Hunkemöller has expanded in Middle East. So how have regional conflicts or geopolitical instability affected your growth plans or revenue outlook in the market?
So we started up with the Salfa group. We opened the first store last year in December, so we're very early in. We by definition refrain from being involved in politics in any form and shape, because that's not our business. So if you take it right now, it's not impacted the Middle East unrest that has not impacted our business as it stands today. It's been more stop to growth. They have been more cautious about how fast would they roll out stores. So we will have meetings with them about how that is. So right now it's not impacted me. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has impacted us. We had a business in Russia that we have closed. We're out of that. And it's impacted the Belarus business and the things we had around there as well. So it had an impact on business. There was no growth. It was a dismantling of the business. And those things will happen. You know, it's the same, the Cambodia, Vietnam conflict on the border. We had a supplier, or a very important supplier in that proxy, that literally shut down for almost 5 weeks. And that means we're not producing products. So that has an impact as well. So it's not only about expansion, it's also your supply chain. When the Houthis were attacking the transportation ship through the Suez, suddenly we were faced with quite significant delays in our product pipeline, because you had to take it around the Horn. So that you have to be, and that's again back to, you have to be observant of what is happening in the world, And I'm using my network. You know, Kasper Røsted, that was the CEO at Adidas when I was there. He sits on the board of Maersk. So when things happen, I call him and said, so what does it happen with transportation prices? Will container prices go up? What is the view from Maersk? And he can then share what he can share, but at least I can paint a picture. Then I can go to my CFO and say, I think we need to either hedge and not have flex prices on container right now, because here's what I heard happening. What is the view? So we get different views in. So that's again back to networking. It's really important to do networking.
Hi Brian, I'm Valentino. You were faced to several turnaround processes at Adidas, at Hunkemöller. So what do you think are the success factors of being a good transformation manager?
That's a good question. You have to be able to, particularly depending on the urgency of the situation, you have to be fast to assess the picture or the environment you're operating in. And of that, you need to move very fast into action-driven activities. You don't have 6 or 8 months to conduct all the information and getting secured in every decision you do. You will start to do a lot of gut feeling decisions based on what you see. So it's a lot of situation management. It's about rallying the key people around that you need for decision making. And that means you don't need everyone around. Because a lot of times when you want to do decisions, you surround yourself with everyone, because then it's very comfortable. No one has really made the decision. And you need to do nimble teams that owns and really task force the things through. And then, of course, it depends on the magnitude, how you're rolling that out. I'll give you the example of when we were, I think if I will give one, would be the whole notion around when we realized we didn't have a credit facility with Adidas, and cash was just running out. And at that time, Adidas did around 2 point something billion in net income. And people say, then you have enough money, you know, but we burned 2.5 a month. So you do the math. There it was really about, we did cost control towers straight away. We went out to all suppliers. Where can we delay? How can we get our money in? And you really, you had cost control tower teams that was both renegotiating contracts, getting money in. We went in and said, where do we have trapped cash? Argentina, etc. How do we get all of that cash in to make sure we can pay our bills? And that was with urgency, and there you really had nimble teams coming in. And then we went out to separate routers to get credit facilities, borrowing money where we could, and we managed to get the KFZ in Germany at that time. Lufthansa was the first, we were the second one, so a state guaranteed up to 3 billion we could borrow, and the state would guarantee for that. And that then, of course, gave a lot of security out for lenders, because there was no one wanted to lend money at that time without that. And if you take that forward, then of course we then wanted to have a credit rating. We didn't have a credit rating, so we couldn't get to the bond market. So we then prepared for a credit rating, which took longer. And we got a credit rating then in the summer, but before that we have done all the other steps. So you have to look at what's most important first when you go through crisis, and not wait for something out here.
Thank you very much for the open conversation. Thank you.